If you remember during the pandemic, people just stopped advertising. And we held off for as long as we can. In fact, I thought we were going to pull off all layoffs until summer, and then maybe things would stabilize. At that point, nobody knew when it was going to end. Clients overall, revenue's down, nobody's advertising, we don't know where this is going, there's no certainty, we have to make these cuts now. And I thought, no better time to start an agency, create the place I'd really want to work.
Okay, so you decided, I think I want to build this thing. What's your very first step to, I'm going to build an agency? All right, we're here with Greg Hahn, the infamous, the man, the legend. He is here with us to talk about his whole history, how we got to where he is today, the journey that led to becoming who he is right now, the owner and founder of Mischief USA. Welcome to the show, Greg.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you inviting me to be one of your earlier guests.
Dude, it's a pleasure. You know, I've been watching your contribution to the world of LinkedIn and some of the writing you've done for some magazines. And to be honest, I really love your writing style. Did you start out in advertising as an actual copywriter, art director? Like, what was your main position?
Yeah, when I got into advertising, it was always as a writer. I started as a journalism major, but that kind of bored me pretty quickly. Yeah, it felt like a lot of collecting facts and then putting them in the right order. And, you know, I like to think more conceptually and also more empathetically and kind of put my own spin on things. So I felt like kind of took the voice out of the writing. So I after graduating, I kind of decided that I wasn't going to go into journalism, and advertising seemed like a fun place to explore. Like, it allows you more freedom in different kind of voices, different kind of, you know, ways of thinking, and talking to people that you may not necessarily, you know, have conversations with normally, because you can adopt personalities and brands that aren't germane to you. So I always like that. It seemed fun to me.
That's a fascinating insight on that. Okay, so take me back. Young Greg Hahn. You said you were kind of went to school for journalism at the beginning. Talk to me about that journey, because I'm interested to find out how you got there, your education, what that looked like, and then how you ended up. Was it a natural transition into advertising world, into media, and kind of like how you arrived at that place?
Yeah, this is going to be so irrelevant in some ways because it was such a different world, right? I went to Ohio State. I grew up in Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio. And, you know, I did always like see Super Bowl commercials and go, wow, that's really cool. No idea like how to get from my couch in Ohio to doing a Super Bowl commercial, right?
I love that.
Yeah. But anyway, I went and studied journalism, like I said, and then was drawn back into advertising. But again, this was right before like most people were going to these portfolio schools and these really polished, you know, coming out with these books that look like the ads that ran, and, you know, they look like seasoned professionals from day one, right? Yeah. That's what started happening when I was graduating.
Okay, hold on, back up. When you say book, what does that mean?
Oh yeah, good point. Now it's a website. You would literally put together your spec work as a junior, right? Mm-hmm. And then print them up on these sheets, and then go get them laminated, right? Wow. Laminated like an old school menu, and then put them all in your portfolio, and then walk that portfolio around to any agency or send it to any agency that you wanted to talk to or get hired at.
So this is a book of your work. So this would be like headlines, articles, ad campaigns. Like, what does it look like?
Yeah. At that time, it was supposed to look like, you know, fake ad campaigns, or, you know, like you give yourself an assignment for whatever, WD-40, right?
Got
it. You do three spec mock ads for that. And then you comp them up, you know, hopefully you knew an art director, or you cut out pictures of magazines. It was really rough. But they, you know, in my version, it was all kind of slopped together. But what was starting to happen is kids were coming out of Art Center and some of these, you know, I think Miami ad school is just starting. And those kids came out with like, they looked like finished ads, like they could run in, you know, magazines at that time. And you would come out with those, but it was still physical. Like the online world wasn't quite as prevalent as it is now, and it was physical, so you'd have to get them laminated to make sure that when you ship them around the country to individual agencies that they came back. You know, it was such a laborious project.
Yeah.
You would ship it out, and like 2 weeks later, maybe they would tell you they got it. You know? Whereas today, it's like you send someone a link and they can instantly look at your stuff, and you can send it a million people. So in some ways, that made you very selective. You had to know where you wanted to go, and you know, the competition wasn't as stacked as it is now, because the price of admission of getting your book to that person was a lot of work.
Right. And then would you actually get it back so that you could use the same material?
Yeah, you had one or two. Like most, if you could afford two, because you had to like double, it was expensive to get this stuff laminated. Then you could send around two, but I have one. But my book was a little different because I didn't go to these schools, but I on my own kind of found a mentor at a small agency. I moved to San Diego right after college because I wanted to get out of Ohio. San Diego seemed warm, and I had a friend who lived there. That was the extent of my plan, right? No place to work. So I got there and I started looking at like what agencies were doing what work, and I somehow locked into an internship at the best agency in San Diego, which was actually pretty good. They had two creatives there that to this day I still hold, as some of the best in the business.
Wow.
They just happened to be there. I kind of learned from them, and they all told me like you have to put together this book. This is why I first learned about it.
Right.
And said you need a portfolio of spec ads, and they showed me like magazines, and then also like one show annuals, which kind of showed me where the bar was, what good meant. I studied those. I just studied on my own and started doing my own kind of thing. And then I took headlines, typed them up on like computer, Xeroxed them, and just Xeroxed the hell out of them. It was all about writing. There were very few visuals, but there's a lot of writing, maybe one picture. And I just kind of made Xerox copies really cheaply, and then mailed those out because I didn't get my stuff laminated. And like this is '90s grunge era, keep in mind. So I had one creative director that's just like, "Wow, who's your art director? How'd you get this to look so cool and grungy and all this kind of stuff?" I was like, "No, that was me. I was trying to make it look good, right?" I didn't know any better, but they liked it, and he obviously liked the writing because that's why I got hired. It wasn't on look, but
it's amazing.
So I got a job in Los Angeles just from that exercise, and then once I got there, it was a small agency. They were kind of edgy at the time, and I was the only writer. It was an interesting place to start, very hard places, notorious in LA for putting people through the grind, but a lot of good people, freelancers, went through there.
Right.
So I just learned every week. There was like a new killer team from Wyden that just started.
Wow.
So
and what agency was this?
It was called Mendelsohn Zine at the time.
Okay.
And then they sold out. But they were.
What was the first agency that you were at?
That was it. The one before that. It was called Franklin Storza, and I was an intern. I basically wasn't getting paid. I kind of would show up.
This was before paid internships were a thing.
Yeah. It was indentured, child work. I had a job somewhere else. I did, that paid the rent, but then I was working 2 shifts basically. Wow. But it was worth it because I did learn a lot there, and it got me to my next thing, which was Mendelsohn Zine. And then from there, being like one of the only writer on staff, I got some stuff produced way above my level.
You were the only writer on staff?
Yeah, it was me, and they paired me up with a more senior art director, which was great for me because I learned a lot from him. And again, there was a bunch of freelancers that came through, were there for a few days and back, but I met a lot of them and tried to absorb as much as I could from them. And then for a while, it was just me. And then they brought in Harold Einstein, who's now a really famous director. And he was great. Like, he was very senior. He was amazing at everything. If you've ever been on the phone, and any of your listeners know Harold from his directing work, he's so good in a meeting, in a presentation. I just learned a lot from him. We became really good friends. He left, and then I went on to a different shop in LA.
Wow.
Yeah. My story kind of goes like this.
I love that. No, I love that. And I think that's kind of, the discussion we want to have here is like understanding what the journey is. So if somebody is maybe in the middle of that journey, they are encouraged by the fact that, hey, this is a marathon. It's not a race. There's going to be times when you're going to be at places that work, places that don't, or maybe you just have no idea what it looks like.
Right. The thing I always kept in mind is that when you're starting out, you are your client. Like your job is to make you famous.
Wow.
Yeah. Before you have paying clients, especially, because then you have no responsibilities to make sure you're checking boxes. You got to make yourself famous. Wow. So I would keep that in mind, and then try to get your work out there to many people and just meet as many people. I mean, it's not my nature to go up to a stranger who I think works in advertising and say, what do you do? Can I kind of meet with you? But I had to do that.
Right.
You just have to push yourself that way.
Yeah. So you were in Ohio. Did you finish school in Ohio?
Yeah.
In Ohio?
Graduated Ohio State.
Okay, and that was it for journalism. That was your major.
Psychology and I was a minor in psychology because that was actually where my interest grew a little bit more. But so again, none of that qualified me to get a job in an agency. But this is the kind of career where there are no qualifications.
Fascinating.
Be
you
an
say
interesting
that.
person, be talented and show who you are on paper. Like no one has ever asked me for my grade point average. And I wish I had, because I studied really hard. Had I known, I would have been, blowing off school way more than I did. But no one has ever even asked if I went through. It's all about your book. It's all about your work.
Wow.
So yeah, I
Wow.
was able to kind of move my way through a couple of agencies in LA, and then
Okay.
got discovered by Fallon in Minneapolis, which was a really super hot shop. At that time, they were the place. Legends.
You're really going across the country
Yeah.
here now. Okay, so you're in LA now.
Yeah.
You go over to.
I went to another agency called Ruben Poster, still around, great independent agency, very nice people, but their account was Honda, major account was Honda.
Okay.
So I got to work on a big national car account, do some cool stuff with those guys. And then, I was a hustler back then. I'm not advocating for this, but it was Ruben Poster was one of those places where it's very seasonal, because they had Honda, which was their big client, and then so there's Honda season, and everyone was jamming on Honda. And then as soon as that work got through, it's kind of sleepy.
Okay.
So once the Honda, which was like, all the work would launch in the fall. And then after that,
you launch the new vehicle wave.
Yeah,
You do a
all
couple retail sales. You do a brand campaign, and then
brand campaign. And then it's kind of
sit
like
back.
pretty slow. And that wasn't good for me, because I like to be busy, and I get anxious because I want to be producing. So I had a whole freelance career on the side.
Stop it.
Yeah.
So were you
Again, I'm
allowed-
not advocating for this.
No, but were you allowed to do that?
No.
So this was your a secret side hustle.
Anyone at Ruben Poster is probably going to be cursing me right now for doing this, but hey, they're probably all, more than
Wait,
happy.
did you get the work done? Like, did your work
I
suffer?
would never slack off on the work. I was punching above my weight, I feel, on both places. But what I would do is I worked on 3rd Street Promenade, Santa Monica. At the time that was buzzing. That's where Ruben Poster's office would work. So I'd go into work, and then it was a very chill place. Then I go to the Barnes & Noble 2 doors down, meet up with my partner from a previous gig, and we'd freelance for the day, and then I'd come back and make sure I didn't miss anything, but do my work. So anyway, this is becoming a long story. Try to make it shorter.
Take your time. It's just fascinating. Don't leave out the details, because I think
this
those
is a fun detail.
these little things are so cool.
This is an interesting detail. So we were working for a creative director in LA. I was freelancing for him, and he would go around to big agencies and get really glamorous projects, because he's a well-known person.
Okay.
Great track record. And he would then farm them out to teams, and I was one of his teams, right? So he got an assignment from Fallon to do a big Coke spot. That's when 30-second, 60-second TV spots that was the show, right? That was it, right? So he got an assignment for a 60-second Coke spot, and he gave it to a bunch of his freelancers, and they ended up picking a spot that I had written, and Coke went on and produced it. And the chief creative officer at Fallon at that time said, "Who was the team on this? Can I meet the writer?" And they flew me up, and I got a job at Fallon.
Wait, so they flew you up where?
To Minneapolis.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. First of all, I was like, I loved LA, and I'm not a cold weather person at all. So I'm but Minneapolis and Fallon at that time were the places I studied. That's how I got to, these were legends who were working in that building, and the bar was just so high. So when I got there, I was like, I kind of hope I don't like this, because it's going to be, I don't want to live in Minneapolis.
Because of snow.
Yeah, that's the only reason. But as soon as I got off the building, off the elevator in the building, and saw all the work on the walls, and saw the names on the plaques, I'm like, shit, I got to do this. If they ask me to come, I can't not go here. And I was there for 8 years, 9 years.
8 years. Yeah. So you suffered the snow for 8 years.
Well, you know what? I suffered the snow for like 3 years. I went on production a lot during the winter, but then they opened an LA office with like 5 people, and I first one knocked on the door going, "Can I work in your LA office?" And they allowed me to do that as long as no one else came with me.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I worked in the small satellite LA office for like 4 years after that.
Wow. Okay, so now you're here at Fallon. You do the Minneapolis stint. Get to LA, you're back in the sunshine, you're hitting the beach, you're surfing, you're doing your thing, making waves. Then what?
Wasn't that fun, but it was close. I'm telling you, it was close. Still working at Fallon. Had all those. It was great. It was a satellite shop. But my creative director and mentor at the time, David Lubars, was chief creative officer at Fallon, and we were really tight. Then he called me one day and said he's getting a job at BBDO in New York, and he wants to sit there suss it out. But he says, if I think I can make something of that, and I think it's good, do you want to come? And I was like, I don't know if I could live in New York, but go there and let me know how it is, and we'll talk. And he called me a year later and told me, I think I can change this place. I think I can make this really something.
Wow.
And I want you to come. So again, just went out there for the heck of it to see what it was like.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things. I was like, I got to do it.
Incredible.
And I've been here 17, 18 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, dude, I'm old.
But you got your first taste of snow in Minneapolis.
Yeah, Ohio.
You had it in Ohio.
Yeah, so this is all like not new to me, but but I know enough about it that I don't like it.
Yeah.
I was like, this is great. This is going to be such a fun experiment. It's like, no, I know what I'm getting into.
Yeah. Okay. So as you're making all of these moves from agency to agency, are you getting pay bumps along the way?
Yeah.
Are they kind of like mediocre ones? Are they big ones because you got the big Coke spot? Like, how is that working for you?
From LA to Minneapolis the first time, it was a small bump. I was still relatively the same level.
Mm-hmm.
But then after 8 years at Fallon, and I had a lot of work, at that time I won a bunch of Lions and all that kind of, the stuff that people look at at that time. And then I knew David, and I also came in at BBDO as an ECD, which there weren't many there. That's a pretty high position. So the bump from Fallon to BBDO was pretty big.
Wow.
Yeah, but that was a level bump too. Like my position rise.
Amazing. So you're executive creative director at BBDO. You 15 years there, and then fast forward now 15 years. Okay, actually, let's not fast forward.
There's a rewind a little bit before that.
Go hit me with that.
Yeah. So I think it was like 12 years into my stint at BBDO. I think it was, timing might be a little off, but around that, I got promoted to Chief Creative Officer of BBDO New York. So David was going to move worldwide. Lou Bars, who's still there, and again, we work tight. He's BBDO worldwide now, and I took over the New York office as Chief Creative Officer. And I did that for 5 years, and then the pandemic hit. And then Omnicom decided that they don't need 2 Chief Creative Officers, quote unquote, in that building. And David's worldwide, so I was the one that got pulled off the ledger. So to speak. Yeah. So one day during the pandemic, I got a call that they had massive layoffs that day. So I feel for a lot of people lost their jobs, like 100 in that office alone.
Wow.
And I was one of them, and it was just kind of like, whoa, what do I do now?
Do you think at that moment, was there like a major account that got lost that was the thing that sparked that?
I think what was happening was, if you remember during the pandemic, people just stopped advertising. And we held off for as long as we can. In fact, I thought we were going to pull off all layoffs until summer, and then maybe things would stabilize. At that point, nobody knew when it was going to end, but it seemed like maybe soon. And then there's a meeting at Omnicom somewhere where they just looked at the books and said, our clients overall, revenue's down, nobody's advertising, we don't know where this is going, there's no certainty, we have to make these cuts now. That's what happened. It was just like a systematic.
They needed to stop the bleeding.
Systemic thing that was happening. Nobody was, budgets were getting pulled, clients didn't know if they had to be in business, in a couple months. It was just a panic time. Yeah. And I thought, no better time to start an agency.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, okay, so this is the moment where you're leaving BBDO and you're like, all right, now's the time for me to go independent and start an agency. What was that process like?
It wasn't that immediate. It was me kind of like, instantly I was on the phone, that day with like, what's going on, who's some people. Talked to like Danny Lennon, who's an amazing, again, mentor, headhunter. People know her in this business, and she just knows everything. She was great, and she just said, like, talk to everybody, talk to like platforms like Facebook, Amazon. Don't just think advertising agencies. But then also I was like, I know how agencies work, and I like producing stuff. So I don't want to walk away from that. So I talked to a bunch of agencies, and in my heart, it was kind of like there was no place I was really excited about. I love Wyden, but they had CCOs. They didn't need. I was at a level where they weren't really hiring that much anyway. So it would have to be a really special place, really special time. And I had couple companies that wanted me to be like at the global CCO level, and to me that felt like that wasn't my strength. Like that's just flying around, being more. In my opinion, it was like more of a hood ornament versus actually sitting there doing the work.
You still wanted to have your hands in the work.
It
becomes managerial, it becomes administrative, it becomes...
Administrative, You're dealing with a lot of headaches and none of the joys of the way I saw it.
Yeah.
But also there's places that I kind of liked, but I haven't been through that system. It's like as soon as I stepped out of it, I kind of realized how hard and how much fear and anxiety and stress there was. I didn't really feel it till I left and was able to look outside. Mm-hmm. So I thought, like, it's pretty sad there's no place that's just like exciting and a place I'd love to be at. And, my sort of chocolate factory of advertising, my Willy Wonka factory. So I thought, like, maybe I should just build that,
Wow.
And create the place I'd really want to work. And that is just antithesis of the things that I thought were wrong with advertising.
Okay, so you decided, I think I want to build this thing. What's your very first step to, I'm gonna build an agency?
Well, the first step came to me in a way because I was talking to my co-founder, one of my co-founders, Dave LaFond.
Okay.
Who, again, this is a tip I would give to you, is just like explore, talk to people, use your network. I didn't know Dave, but I saw on LinkedIn his agency, which is called No Fixed Address, and they're an agency in Canada. They seem to be hiring people, and everyone was really happy on LinkedIn compared to like every other post, which is about people losing their jobs, and everyone seemed scared and nervous. Their people seem really happy and like winning business and hiring. So I just like messaged them, I was like, hey, I'd love to hear about your model. It seems interesting. You guys are doing something different that no one else is doing.
Fascinating.
And then he called me.
That's fascinating.
And we just started talking, and not with any sense of working together, or at least I didn't. And then he, in our conversations, very like second or first conversation, he's like, have you ever thought of starting your own agency? And, I think every creative has had their fantasy place in mind. So it's like, I've thought of it, but I've also thought that I would not be very good at it because I don't know how to run a business. I don't know the back end. I don't know how agencies made money at that time.
Yeah.
I focus on creative. And he's like, well, what if you got somebody to take care of all the stuff you didn't want to do or weren't good at, that was really loved doing that stuff and liked that stuff and backed you, and you could just open it in your creative vision. He's like, would that interest you? And I said, yes. I was like, that sounds amazing.
Dude, that's like life coach advice right there.
Yeah,
I'm reading a book right now called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell, who actually is a Canadian. And that's one of his major components of buying back your time is you want to find other people to do the things that you're not good at. Maybe you can do it. Maybe you can figure it out. But if it's not your passion, it's not the thing that you want to do, get somebody who's passionate, what it is that they love to do. Get them to do that while you focus on what your passions and your gifts are.
That is such a good lesson.
Oh.
Yeah. Find people who are passionate about the things you are not good at.
Yeah.
And partner with them.
That's right.
And if you get along and you guys see things eye to eye and you have the same, North Star, you found your partner, man. That's what you look for. And I found it in Dave and his partner, Serge Rancourt.
Yeah.
Those guys were seasoned agency vets, know the holding company system, but wanted to break free because, again, they thought that holding companies weren't treating people the way that they should be treated, especially the talent.
Yeah.
They were treating, they were beyond numbers. They were about, building people up. So I love those guys. And we just talked, and the more conversations, the more kind of real it seemed like maybe we actually could do this. And Dave is, we complement each other in many ways because I'm more of a pontificator and I like to think about all the things. And Dave is like, he can place a bet and go.
Wow.
And he did. And I kind of went along for the ride. But, the way he put it was kind of interesting to me, which was, think of it as opening a Michelin star restaurant. You hire the chef that has the vision. You let them work that. They run that. And then you have someone who's really good at operations and management.
Incredible.
And that's how you make a 4-star restaurant. Yeah.
Incredible. Yeah. That's great advice. So do you find now that you still are in contact with them and they're still part of this whole thing and that you've settled into a place where you still get to understand the way it works in terms of agency and the billing and all the operation stuff? Do you understand that more now, having to, be, the owner of an agency, whereas before, as I was just the creative guy, I was the copywriter, like I just wanted to do creative. You had no understanding of how it worked with the agency, but now you do.
I did as a CCO, but not to the extent that I, was my own business.
Of course.
So a couple things on that. One is that we are officially titled Mischief at No Fixed Address. So I feel they're like our sister agency, and they own other agencies. So we share some services that makes our model pretty efficient, like IT and HR and things like that.
Smart.
So there's a connection, and Dave's great. He gives us complete creative freedom, but he's there for help, and he's part of it. He feels the passion as well, and same with Serge. But what they also did was set me up with some really great people. Our president, Carrie McKibben, another one of those people who are like so good and so passionate, everything I'm not, and great with clients and managing people and dealing with scoping, and is so passionate about the creative work. So again, we just stars aligned.
It's amazing.
Found them, and they brought two creatives that worked with BBDO over, Bianca and Kevin, and we just sort of built the dream team, as we went.
Okay, so you're a scrappy new independent agency deciding to launch during the pandemic. What's your first step? You need clients. You're an agency, you need clients. What is it that you do next?
Again, stars did align for us. First of all, interesting thing is we did this all over Zoom, and that helped facilitate. You imagine like flying back and forth and all the meetings and lag time that would have taken.
Right.
I got laid off in April. Our agency opened in June 1st. So it happened very quick, and all over Zoom.
You got fired in April, and in June you had a new agency?
Yeah.
Come on.
And we launched work a few days after that,
Launched work? What work?
Yeah.
How does this happen?
Well, that just shows we were almost ready to launch earlier, because when we first got hooked up with No Fixed Address, and there was a rumor out there in Canada that I was starting an agency with someone in Canada, right? And people know each other. It's a small agency world.
Yeah.
So one of the clients at Kraft Heinz was looking for an agency to do a project with them that just wasn't a big traditional agency, and they said, "Well, you might be interested in this. Greg is starting something with Dave LaFond at No Fixed Address, and you could get you should just talk to those guys to see what they're all about, like what they're planning." And he gave us a project based off of that.
Wow.
And it was for Capri Sun. It was a big, splashy project. And we started working on it before, we were called Agency X at that time, because nobody, we couldn't leak that we were actually an agency or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I used a lot of the creatives at No Fixed Address. So that model is pretty efficient. I
see.
Yeah, and we use their account people and their planners.
Smart.
So it's a really new kind of model during the pandemic. It kind of like was brand new to people. Yeah,
it's very scrappy.
Yeah, scrappy. It was out of the box kind of way to launch an agency. So we had that client project going on, and then once we launched with Bianca and Kevin and Carrie in June, and a few weeks later with some work, we're already up and running.
Incredible.
And we had an agency that had some work to show, and then we got a lot of buzz pretty quickly. Again, like I wouldn't have planned it this way, but the fact that I got fired in kind of a high-profile way, it was on the cover of New Ad Age next morning. Wow. That sort of brought a lot of attention to us, because people followed up on what I'm doing next, and so we got a lot of publicity pretty early, and that helped.
Were you getting people like in the industry, some of your peers reaching out and like, sorry to hear you got canned?
People were great.
Okay.
Yeah. It was such a support. It still is. Like I was amazed at, it gets a reputation for cutthroat and competitiveness.
Yeah.
I didn't feel that at all.
That's
I
amazing.
Felt so much support and people pulling for us.
Yeah.
And people at other agencies like just saying, thank you for showing us it could be fun, to our agency. I love that. I have felt like a tighter community ever since. But
that's amazing.
That's been great.
That's amazing.
So yeah, we launched. We were up and running. Had like so many projects. For a year and a half, we never met in person. Never. You couldn't. Like we couldn't travel. We were under lockup. So for the first year and a half, it was all over Zoom. Now we have an office in Brooklyn. We have 100 people there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's 4 years ago now. Yeah. Less than 4 years.
Just over 4 years.
Just over 4 years.
It'll be 5
and you have 100 employees in an office in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Okay, so talk to me about, the new clients that you get. So you got your first opportunity with this Capri Sun thing, and you're moving forward now. You guys are just going out and winning business. Yeah. How does that work? Talk to me about the process of.
Yeah, this was a very unusual move, but our fourth or third hire was Oliver McAteer, who came from Campaign Magazine, never worked in an agency, But he said, I want to do your PR. I want to be your, I want to help you guys get the word out.
Now, did you know this person from something before?
I knew him because he interviewed me, right? He interviewed me as I got let go. And he did an interview with Dave and I as we were talking about launching this. And then he immediately contacted me. He's like, you guys are, I've never seen anything like what you guys are doing. This model's so different. I want to be part of it. We're like, what do you do? He's like, I don't know, but I want to do it with you guys. No, he could tell us. He knew so many people. He knew the industry because he'd been working at Campaign Magazine as an editor for so long. He knew everybody. And he was one of our earliest hires, and he got us in the room with a bunch of CMOs. So through a contact of his, we got a project from OkCupid. We got another project from Kraft, which kind of blew up and went viral. And then
which campaign was it?
Said Nudes for mac and cheese, Kraft mac and cheese. So, and then we got another project from Contact that kind of blew up because it got pulled from CNN. It was like a controversial thing. Got us a lot of news and all that kind of stuff. So we immediately started getting buzz.
Right.
And that's what we want to be known for, is work that makes us stir and gets, its unfair share of attention.
Yeah, that's what being a Mischief is.
Yeah. It was all about, we had a purpose from day one, and the name and the vision was kind of set in stone, and we've tried to live up to that, and it's helped us know who we are.
That's amazing. So what is your process for getting new business? Like, I've seen articles where you talk about the pitch and you talk about the things that happen in a pitch. Part of what the agency needs to do to keep getting business is to pitch on new business. Yeah. What is that process like for you? Is it something that gives you anxiety? Is it something that fires you up?
Depends on, we've always said that our work is our best new business tool. So we've had people, we get a lot of people coming to us, and it comes to us in two ways. One is like, let's talk, and if we like each other, we'll do a project. Another is, we were looking for an agency, we're talking to a bunch of agencies, we're gonna do a pitch, a full spec pitch, and would you be interested? And we always say, like, let's have a conversation first, because it's all about chemistry with us.
Yeah.
And then we'll do that, and then if we like them and they like us, we'll say, well, would you forgo a pitch for a project, or can we do a strategy session with you first so you can see how we think, and then maybe you don't need to do a pitch. And we've subverted a lot of pitches that way.
Wow. Yeah. In that you just don't work with them, or they like the strategy so much?
The latter. We've called off a couple pitches because of that, or we start with a small project that's become a roster or AOR type thing. And so most of our AORs started that way. We try to avoid a competitive spec pitch as much as possible. I just don't think it's the best way to find an agency or judge a partnership.
What is the best way?
Working together, starting off with a small project.
Right.
And then getting to know each other through that. And then 99% of the time when we've done that, we've gotten, it's just become a long-term relationship.
Fascinating.
And when it doesn't, it's for the better. It's because we know we're not the right partners, or you're not the right partners.
You want to date before you get married.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think this idea of spending a lot of time doing fake campaigns under hypothetical situations and circumstances is a waste of time.
Okay, so talk to me about hiring. Yeah. I think it was an article I read that you prefer to hire for humans, not for roles. What does that mean?
That means if you're a great thinker, if you're a great person, if you bring something to the table that we don't have, we'll try to find where you fit in, right? A lot of times, again, Ollie is a perfect example of that. Oliver McIntyre, we didn't have a role for him. We didn't know it, but he brought so much to the table in our conversations and who we knew and all this kind of stuff that we just created that for him.
Is he still with you now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh,
he's still big.
So is he at Campaign anymore?
No. He left his job. We hired him in 2020. He's been with us ever since. He's become the voice of Mischief, and he is so much a part of our agency now that it's like that's why we decided, we're not going to be so locked into traditional roles in agencies. But we do, now as we've grown, we certainly need to fill positions.
Sure.
So we start there.
And how do you attract people to those positions? Is it the work that's doing all that? What do you do as an agency to make sure that you have the top people coming to you saying, I want to work there? I
think the most important thing for anybody at an agency or who's thinking of starting an agency is to treat it like a brand. So people, when you treat it like a brand and your aim is for fame, you increase your odds of luck, so to speak, of the right people finding you.
Right.
So when people know about you and know what you stand for and know the kind of work you do, you'll attract those kind of people towards you.
Wow.
Or we'll, in a lot of cases, we'll see work that we love out and try to find out who did it.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So as a person out there trying to get hired, make yourself famous. You know, it's that hard and that simple. You know, you just you gotta kind of focus on trying to get your work out there. Because I know I know so many talented people, and it's really tough, that are out of a job right now, and they shouldn't be. Like, these are great people, and it's just the market's so strange now. So it can feel super anxious right now, and it can feel like a lot of it's out of your control, because it is. You put your fate, send something off and put your fate into other people's hands.
Right.
And then you wait.
Yeah.
And I was in that position for a little bit, but it will drive you crazy. So one thing I would recommend doing is, like, take your fate in control as much as you can, because at least you'll have some agency over it. At least you'll have a feeling of control, which will release some anxiety. So what I mean by that is, like, your project, your brand, make yourself famous. Find some way. It doesn't have to be in advertising. Some way to get people to go, wait, who did that? That's crazy. I want to meet that person.
That's so cool.
Put your energies there.
Now, what's the culture like? Do you focus on culture? Is that a big word at the agency?
It's huge. It's all we have, honestly, man.
Wow.
Yeah, culture. People have to know, why they're there, and that they're working towards something that's bigger than themselves, and they're not just earning a paycheck. I've used this analogy before, but it puts it in a good space. It's like the difference between someone who goes to, if you think of yourself as, you're a construction worker, right? And you think of your job as, I lay bricks every day. I go to work and I lay bricks. Or do you think of yourself as, I'm building a cathedral, right? Suddenly you know the purpose and what's going to happen in that building and what's going to last after you laid your bricks and the meaning of it all. And we want people who are that passionate about it, that feel like, this is not just getting through the day. This is what I love to do. This is, and a big part of that too is just be welcoming. We want to be a place where people actually have fun and like to hang out.
Yeah.
And we choose to be there. And I also think, like, if you support the people will support the culture. So you got to be there for people and show that you're not a machine, and you're there to, y'all, when they're happy, the work is better, the place is better. And we try to really, we won't hire talented people. It's just not worth it.
So do you find that it's easier to do and have that culture inside of an independent agency versus a big agency that has shareholders to and being part of that conglomerate? Is it possible to have that type of a culture underneath an umbrella?
I'm sure it is. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure a lot of places do. But to me, it just feels like we have such control over when to say yes or no, when to hire and when not. We don't have to go through layers. It's very quick, simple decisions that we can better steer that. I do think when you answer to shareholders, though, when that is where everything stops, it does trickle down and affect everything.
Right.
Yeah, because you're making more cautious decisions.
Does that allow you to be more nimble when it comes to the decisions that you want to make as an agency too?
Oh yeah, it's like 3 people, 4 people.
That's
and
it.
we did, like, when we decide whether to pitch something or not, we talk pretty quickly amongst team. We're so aligned, and if it's like they just don't feel like us, like, I don't want to put our people through this, that kind of thing, or like we could take it, it's good money, but it's not good long term for us, then we'll all be like, cool.
So the goal is not to just become this behemoth agency that makes beaucoup dollars and it's just like, we're just all about the money. You're trying to protect the culture and the people by choosing who you work with so that there's synergy there between you and the... That's interesting.
I'm not anti-money or anti-growth. I'd be an idiot to be in this business to be that way.
Not in New York, anyways.
Yeah. But what I am is growth through passion. We have our list. If you talk about culture, we have our Mischief mindset, our Mischief principles, and they're on our website. But one of them is, if you focus on what makes you special, the money will follow. If you focus on the money, you'll cease to be special.
Wow.
You'll become a commodity. And then all you're competing on is price, and then you're just doing work to get money, and then you're hiring the wrong kind of people because they're the only ones who will want to work on this kind of thing. And then you become that agency. And here you are, you might be big, but man, you're fighting for every penny and you're not happy.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I'm an eye on the bigger picture.
Wow.
Yeah.
If you were to have one client that you wish was your client, like your dream client, just in terms of the brand, I know you still have to factor in whether there's chemistry, whether you're a good fit. But one brand that you're like, oh, I'd really love to work on that business because I have so many great ideas.
Well, you know what? Yeah, there's two parts to that question. One is I'm going to take your caveat of like we pick clients based on the people, not on the brand or on the the size of the account. It's really about who's sitting across the table and who we're going to. So I don't know any of these people. I hope they're great because, but if you were to ask me, I would say Volkswagen.
Interesting.
Yeah, because growing up as a kid, looking at advertising, consistently from DDB to what they were doing in London in the 90s and the 2000s throughout the history, we're the brand that always did something great.
Wow.
And it just has such a like iconic place in advertising that I'd be like, I would love to take them to this place where they, just had the magic.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, who has it now?
Johannes Leonardo, they're doing a great job with it. So this is not to take their account from what you asked me.
Are they going to be worried now?
Yeah. Don't be worried, guys, unless they'll have clients listening to this. And I wouldn't drive them to mischiefUSA.com at all to contact us. But no, those guys are doing a great job with it. But just as a brand from my heart, as growing up as a special place in advertising.
Sure.
But of course, they're the dream brands of every.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. You have 2 Emmys.
Yeah.
What are they for? And do you find that that makes a difference for the profile? Like you said, you got to do what you can to make yourself famous so that you get attention, so that you can have an opportunity to do the work. Do you find that helps at all?
My first one was for a musical guest, and the second one was for a co-star in, no, neither of them were they were for commercial. They were commercial Emmys for BBDO for projects I worked on. They're not my personal Emmys. They're the teams.
Right.
One was for Sandy Hook Promise, and actually they were both for. No, one was for P&G, actually, believe it or not.
Okay.
It was a project called The Talk, which was part of their My Black is Beautiful project. And really powerful film we did with a great team at BBDO. And then the other was for Sandy Hook Promise, which is
very cool.
Yeah. But yeah, I love those kind of awards because they're outside of our little bubble.
Yeah.
And like people on the street know what an Emmy is. I remember like the night of the Emmys, I was in the hotel walking through our hotel, which is like a fancy LA hotel, up in the elevator, and people were like, "Oh my God, you have an Emmy! Who are you? What are you?" I'm like, "I'm not gonna tell you what it's for because I want you to believe it's for something cool." Yeah. It was really cool. It was fun.
So you actually have the statue, or you brought it back to the?
I do have one of them, and
that's so cool.
Yeah, I don't know where the other one is, but
it's probably at the agency.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's very cool. Fast forward now, 10 years. Where do you want Mischief to be?
Yeah, I get asked that question a lot. And, there's a part of me that says if you were to ask me 4 years ago if I would be here now, I'd say, what are you high? What are you talking about? So I try not to put too many ropes around that. I think as long as we're staying true to who we are, as long as we are ourselves, I'll be happy. I've said that I focus more on impact than size. So as long as we're I'd like to make a big impact on culture, on clients. Obviously, that's how we do what we do, but also on the industry. I'd like to leave a mark.
Yeah.
I'm at that point in my career where it's about like what happens, long term.
Yeah.
So I'd like to, it's all about having a big impact, and we're only starting.
Yeah, it's so true.
Most agencies that we're competing with have been around for decades. So, yeah.
Fascinating. Well, that's not a lateral move by any means to go from being fired to starting a whole new agency and getting success so quickly. So I think it's inspiring. Anybody who's at a place where there's any transition in their life from what they're doing and being able to rise from that is great.
I'll say this, transitions are hard, and you never feel this in the moment, but everybody's going to say it to you. And when they do, you're probably going to want to punch them in the face. You're going to look back at this and you're going to think that was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I heard that a lot. And I really was like, easy for you to say.
Yeah.
But damn it, they were right.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
Absolutely. I've become very stoic in the last few years. And one of the many principles of stoicism is amor fati, which means love your fate. And that means take whatever comes your way and make it your way kind of thing. Embrace it. Learn from it.
Yeah.
Make it into something good. because you can't affect everything, but you can affect what you do with it.
Right, or how you respond to
Exactly.
it.
That's
Right.
it. Yeah.
That's good. Do you still get to actually write something from scratch and like, I'm bringing an idea to the table
Yeah.
along with the teams?
Yeah, I don't compete with teams, but if I often I'll see something cool happening in cultures. Like, what if we did this with that? Or there was a couple projects, especially early on, where we just didn't have the people, so I took it on.
Wow.
Did one for Pfizer, which I thought was really fun back in the day, and then we've done a couple things where this is such a creative position. I think that people forget that our creativity applies in many different ways, and it's like, how do we get ourselves out there? What are we doing as a brand for us? How do we solve problems? That's what I really like about this job. Our job is to solve problems with creativity. It's not to type or write or draw or put things into AI. It's to solve a problem, and that's why I love strategy so much, because it's about the detective work of solving a problem.
I love that. And how do you inspire your teams to adopt that same type of outlook? Is it just because it's part of the culture, or what are you saying to them to say, don't take it seriously, but like think of the strategy and have fun with it and enjoy the work?
Our strategy department is really ingrained in it's a big part of our agency. And we look at it that way as there's not so much creative and strategy and you do your work and stay out of my lane. It's like, we're here to solve this problem. What would be the coolest way? Oh, strategy had this thought about, like, people are doing this. And then here's a really cool way to get that out in the culture. So it's very organic, but we rely heavily on strategy. We do so much work on, our whole process, we have this, in our pitch decks is 2 steps, basically. First step is what to say. Second step is how to say it. We spend 90% of our time on the first step, on what to say. And then it's like blowing out creatively the most provocative, interesting, gravitational way of saying it.
Here's a question I had for you. What is your outlook on work ethic? There's a lot of talk about work-life balance, especially, maybe it's a newer idea or an idea that we're starting to think about more and more as we want to protect mental health in the office and in the work world. What do you feel about that?
It's such an individual thing, and we look for people who are intrinsically motivated. I don't motivate with a stick and say, you do this or else, but we do look for people who would. I think I was just kind of raised this way. If my parents were not strict with me, but the last thing I wanted to do with that trust was disappoint them. So I'm very much like, I don't need someone telling me to work. But at the other time, I found something I'm passionate about and I love it, and it energizes me versus draining me. So if that's what you're feeling, do you work as much as in that way as you can. And I'm not going to count the hours. If you're your best for 3 hours a day and you're delivering great work, that's fine. I don't care. If you are the kind of person that needs more regiment, that works for you. Don't look down on people who aren't that way. As long as everyone's doing the work, I don't care. To me, it's not a work-life balance, because then it sort of makes one bad, one good, one have to do, one want to do. It's a harmony. It's kind of like those things need to live together.
I love that. And so going back to what you said earlier when it came to your education, you're like, I'm not utilizing what I went to school for, but I'm sure there are aspects of what you learned that you use in your day-to-day. How important is the education component when you're looking at new talent to come to your agency?
I don't often look at their educational background, but what I do look is like someone who likes to learn and someone who's very curious. That's what I gained from college, is the desire to learn and the ability to kind of examine things and the discipline of that it does take to learn. Whether I use that knowledge now or not, probably do, but my mom found my report card from college, ironically. She sent it to me like a couple weeks ago. And I was like, astrophysics was one of the classes, and personal economics was one, which I'm not good at. But it's just funny to see, in advertising, all this comes to play somehow. I'm sure I've used those principles, chaos theory, all this kind of stuff that just leads in. There's no waste of knowledge in advertising.
It's amazing that your mom just sent it to you. It's amazing.
I was like, again, had I known, I wouldn't have studied this hard. I did pretty well. I can't drive myself crazy for these grades.
So you're not looking at a potential hire. You're not looking at their education and be like, oh, this is fantastic. They got all this education.
It would probably depend on the role. If you're a planner or someone that needs to do more regimented, scholastic kind of work, and a lot of that relies on research and understanding all that. And then it's probably more important. If you're a creative that just comes up with great ideas around strategy, that's what matters. Yeah, there's a lot of great creatives that never went to college. Yeah,
right.
Fun.
Do you have a side hustle? Is there something that you do outside of advertising, outside of your day-to-day at Mischief that is your side hustle?
No, I mean, I guess nothing that's going to earn me money, but I grew up wanting to be a professional musician, so I still dabble in guitar, but I don't nowhere near that I wouldn't want anybody to hear at this point. But I have a 14-year-old and a family, my wife, so as much time as I can spend with them doing things and hanging out.
Did I hear somewhere that your daughter's name is Tuesday?
Yeah, Tuesday's my daughter. Yeah.
Why Tuesday? Is that your favorite day of the week?
No.
It's just a cool name?
You know what it was? First of all, anybody who's having a child, this is my advice to you, never tell anybody what the name is going to be before the child's born. Because we went through a lot of names, and every name I told a bunch of my friends, and they're like, that's a stripper's name, not a stripper. But she's going to be this, she's going to be that, and you can't give her that name. I know someone and it just killed everything. So then, once we came up with Tuesday, I didn't tell anybody until she was born. And she was born on Thursday, so everyone's like, why? But the real origin story behind that, honestly, is I kind of like the name Wednesday, Wednesday Addams, but it just felt like I'm automatically going to turn her into goth. It's going to paint her. It's too dark. And I was like, Tuesday is such a bright, happy, fun name. And Tuesday Wells is a famous, cool actress from the 60s. And I was
That's amazing.
That's got a vibe to it. I like Tuesday. So she is very much a Tuesday.
I love it. I love how they just shut it down. You're like, that's a stripper's name.
Yeah,
no,
as soon as
not name.
I was like, oh, you're right. Granted, the name was Bambi, but no, I'm kidding.
Wow. Okay. Well, dude, this has been an awesome treat just to kind of go through your story. Thank you for sharing all that. Yeah, no, this is great. I think there's a lot of inspiring moments there. I think you've painted an awesome picture of what it's like to be at an agency, to grow an agency, to have the courage to do so is, especially at the beginning of a pandemic. It's like it's unheard of. So congratulations to all your success.
Thank you. Appreciate it. To anyone out there, take a chance on yourself. If you believe in it, just go for it.
Amazing. I love it.
My words of inspiration.
That's so good. Dude, this was fun, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh my goodness. That was like
therapy.